Good evening. Welcome into the On Deck Circle. Coming up tonight, we'll talk live with Julieta Valdez, the Woodlands High School volleyball player who had cardiac arrest in May and is now efforting awareness for that with other high school athletes. Also, we'll talk live with Big Daddy and Rob Lynch, our insider of Houston and all sports. Plus, we'll have the ODC video of the week and fun fact of the week. The honorable and esteemed Mike Allen sits in for Patrick Davis. So come join him, Leland Freeman, and myself, Chuck Licata, here inside the On Deck Circle.
Week hiatus, one for a holiday, the other for personal. Gentlemen, how are you? Thanks for coming in. Mike, Mike kind of thrown in last second. Thanks for stepping in for Patrick Davis. Appreciate your efforts to get us on the air. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
All right. So we will not have everything we talked about. We won't have Skype today. We're just going to kind of plow through this puppy, but we got a lot of great content coming up. As you have the graphic with the email and the Twitter, possibly? No, that's the baseball one.
We got some sports that are.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. Hey, it's okay. It was a last minute deal. Poor Mike's we got to keep this as simple as possible. The good news is we'll have Rob Lynch and Julieta will be calling in. Unfortunately, we won't have the video, but we'll have the audio. We'll bring them both back again when we can get the video and the Skype possibilities down as well. So at this moment, though, we do have the email available, which is ondeckcircle19@gmail.com. And, of course, we have the chat that is with the YouTube channel that is right here. Okay, moving on, pressing on. Before we get to Rob Lynch, he's going to call in about 11 minutes. He is our sports insider. NHL, NBA have a plan. MLB, they continue to argue, and they are not in agreement at all. In fact, we've got the update from 45 minutes ago. We'll give you that here in just a second. But Leland, Mike, NHL, they've got an agreement in place. However, there's nothing specific yet. What the NHL is doing is they've got a 24-team, basically called round robin. And what they're going to do is they're going to seed after each round of the playoffs. There'll be a best of 5 first round, basically play-in. And then, Mike, can you go to the 3-shot? Thank you. Yeah, don't show me, please, by myself. And then they're going to every other round, which there'll be 4 more rounds to the Stanley Cup Championship. There's going to be best of 7.
Do they have an idea which venues they're going to play?
They're going to play 2 NHL cities. They've narrowed the list down to 10 cities that they're going to play, and it's basically going to be hubs. Okay, they'll have 2 cities that they're going to play in, and everybody obviously will be there. I would imagine it's going to be divided by Eastern Conference, Western Conference.
Now, the question is, why does it have to be an NHL city? Couldn't it be a neutral? I mean, considering there's no crowds anyways, couldn't it be a neutral site with an arena?
We don't know if there's not going to be crowds eventually or not. We might be at the point where we can have crowds for the semifinals and the finals.
They're basically setting it up like the World Cup.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, the reason why I say this is if they're going to have crowds, maybe gauge a NHL capable arena in a non-NHL market such as Houston to see if possibly they could use them as an expansion team. Plus, it would be fair to all teams because you wouldn't have any home ice advantage or home ring advantage.
Right. But the players will be familiar with the ice. They'll be familiar with the 2 rinks that they're playing in if they pick NHL cities. To me, the way the NHL operates, this makes sense. This makes sense that they'll pick 2 NHL cities. You're right. There's going to be a little bit of bias towards the home team. And if the home team gets eliminated, well, there goes the bias. But you're going to, depending on when they start letting fans in. I mean, Texas Motor Speedway, which was one of the videos we would have had if our producer, we won't get into that. Texas Motor Speedway ran this past weekend. They had the option, because of what Governor Abbott had said, 25% capacity. They decided to run it without a crowd. because NASCAR is doing the same thing. They're running races without the crowd. But here in Texas, Governor Abbott has said 25% capacity, we can have crowds at pro sporting venues with obvious safety precautions. And
Hasn't there been other lower tier motorsports that actually had crowds?
Yes.
Outlaw races.
yes, outlaw races, dirt tracks, that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, because those types of people that go to those races have a very, very strong immune system just because of their lifestyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't. The COVID virus doesn't. It can't infect somebody whose blood is 25%. You know, Mickey Big Mouth. You know what I'm saying? Or beer.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Or nacho cheese. I mean, it doesn't do well with nacho cheese.
So the cure is Taco Bell. Got
That's
it.
pretty much. I was waiting for people to come up with that. I'm kind of upset the CDC didn't come to that
No
conclusion.
wonder Taco
You
Bell
know,
was
you
giving
can't
out
get,
free
You
tacos.
can't get COVID when you live with Natty Light. I'm sorry.
Okay. I can see having Mike instead of Patty is going to make this really interesting.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I did. I caught a soccer game,
okay.
televised soccer game,
All right.
and
Did they have crowds or not?
I watched it because I'm a fan of soccer.
Okay.
Okay, so I watched it because I was a fan of soccer.
By the way, Mike
they
Allen
had-
show coming up right after this show,
Yeah, 9:00.
9:00. Yeah.
They had cutouts of people in
Really?
the stands,
Oh, my
paper,
goodness.
cardboard cutouts, and so each row had a cardboard cutout of a picture of a fan, and they pumped crowd music into the game
Oh, that's not bad.
while they were playing.
That's not bad.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Hey,
I'm surprised that UFC doesn't have other fighters in the crowd, sort of like what the professional wrestling organizations have
Well,
done.
the fight, that's something different, though. I mean, wrestling's a show.
Right, true.
I'm waiting to
wrestling's
get
just-
ready to fight. I care less what that dude's doing out there in the ring. I'm going to be back getting my mind right to go fight. Now, maybe after my fight, if I won,
or a fighter that wasn't on the card.
well, I'm not going to show up and not get paid. You're going to have to pay them to be there.
absolutely.
I mean, the wrestlers are paid as part of the
Yes.
show.
Right, exactly.
So having them in the crowd during a fake fight, that's fine. I can see that. But UFC, I can't see it.
Right.
I don't know. That's just me.
Okay, real quick, shifting gears. Let's go to NBA and they've got it. This is the league that has everything down pat. They've got dates. They've got everything.
They got dates. They got venues. They're going to have a 22-team playoff, which means that almost every team makes it into the playoffs.
Kind of like what they accuse the NHL of, getting every team in the playoff.
And
But
they're going to have 9 seeds in each, and it's also lopsided, so it's favoring the Western Conference over the Eastern Conference.
okay,
They have extra teams from the West. They only have one extra team from the East, and they've got like 5 or 6 from the in the West.
Okay.
And so they have 9 seeds, and the 9th seed is a single elimination. So if they lose one game, they're out. After the 9-game, I guess it's. They call it the completion of the regular season.
right.
you kinda scratch your
It's
head-
completion of regular season.
You kinda
right?
scratch your head
It's
about it.
basically like a play-in type
kind of.
tournament.
And it starts
It's like
at-
a bracket
and
tournament
it's-
into
And it
the
starts
playoffs.
at the end of July and goes to the end of October, with the next
Right.
season taking place at the beginning of December. This tournament, playoff, whatever you want to call it, is going to take place at the Walt Disney Resort, but the players cannot go to Disney World. They can't go to Disney World, but they can go to the golf course and social distance, and they can go to the restaurants and not interact with people.
right.
And the fact that they have dates and a venue, no crowds, but the
Right.
fact that they're doing it, and they're also going to be all put up at the Disney World, the hotels that are actually on the resort, and of course they're going to, it's going to be players and staff only to prevent any cross contamination of anything going on. But
Of a completely weak virus that 99% of us recover from.
exactly,
I know.
but the fact that they're going to They're
Amen.
going to have a very long season, but at the same token, the 8 teams that don't get in, they're not playing
Right.
for 9 months.
Right. Now, they talked about, I know Atlanta Hawks are one of them, and the coach was talking about having a round-robin type tournament for those 8 teams that aren't making, so their players aren't without playing for 9 months.
At the same
And in fact, they're talking about having it televised. Is what they're trying to get it televised.
at the same time,
So basically a tournament of the worst teams in the NBA.
Pretty much, yeah.
the CBI.
Well, basically, it's the NIT version of the NBA playoffs,
or the CBI.
Well,
which the University of Texas basketball team is used to playing in the NIT. Oh, sorry, did I say it out loud? Sorry.
They deserve to be called out.
Yes, they do.
But other interesting fact is that you're going to have players playing from the end of July, effectively through, if the regular season isn't pushed back a month, June. So that's what 10 months of solid playing with maybe a few weeks in November of time off. That's what caused Yao Ming to have early retirement, because when he was playing in the NBA, he was also obligated as part of the deal with the Chinese government to also play with the Chinese national team
Right.
during the summer. So he was basically playing year-round basketball and developed microfractures in his feet that, after years of doing that, no matter how many times he had surgery, he would always break his foot, and he had to retire early. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see how many of those type of injuries, or if you have any ACL,
Right.
tear, Kevin
Exactly.
Durant type situations.
Yep.
And was Brooklyn actually one of the 22 teams, or they weren't?
Yeah, they were. Yep. And Kevin Durant has said he's not coming back this year.
I don't blame him.
He's not coming back.
I don't blame him. Coming
Absolutely
off
not.
an ACL injury, there's no point.
Yep. Hey, Mike, real quick, give us that graphic. I know Rob Lynch is going to call in 2 minutes. I want to touch on this, and we'll get back to this later. Yeah, throw us the baseball graphic. There you go. So there it is. Current proposal, and literally, if you go to the bottom where the player said no thank you, that happened 45 minutes ago. The proposal today by MLB owners, 76-game season. You can see the information there. Higher potential salary, but less guaranteed money. They're talking about 16-team playoffs. You'll see the number of playoff teams going up as we move on. Total compensation, $1.432 billion. Players literally 45 minutes ago said, thanks, but no thanks. First proposal.
So what do the players want?
They want
Players want guaranteed money. They want guaranteed salaries.
and they also
period.
won 122 games.
Yes. First proposal back a couple months ago. Owners said 82-game season, prorated salaries, $200 million in playoff money, total comp $1.23 billion. Players immediately countered with a 114-game season, full pro rata, basically meaning everybody gets paid their salaries. 14-team playoffs, total compensation $2.87 billion. Owners said no, which led to the current proposal today. Here's the key items out of this. It's all about the money. Gee, go figure that one. No surprise there. Every proposal has this ending date in late October because they're afraid of the situation I got it. Basically, they're concerned about the second coming of the coronavirus, so they're trying to get everything. They've said ending date late October, and something to look forward to in the future, MLB Player Association, which basically the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, expires after the 2021 season. So what they do this year is literally going to set the table for next year. Mike, let's come back live as I believe our sports insider, Big Daddy Rob Lynch, is on the line. Hello?
Hey, man, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Hey, let me tell you something. I was
Yeah.
listening earlier, and anytime you can mix a natty in with a COVID cure, I'm glad you guys asked me to be on here. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Hey, so Rob Lynch out of Houston, Big Daddy, he is known in my previous shows on AM 1300. So what do you think about the MLB and the MLB players? Obviously, they're going to be arguing about money from now until they start the season, if we get a season in. And are the Houston Astros, Big Daddy, are they the biggest benefactors out of this? Because
Well, I don't think
nobody's
there's
talking
any
about the
question
trash
about
cans.
that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question the Astros not having to play in somebody else's ballpark. I think they can't believe this just happened to them. Now, we are going to be able, if they ever get this thing off the ground. I truly don't think it's going to happen. We're running out of time now. we're getting awful close to July the 4th, and that's when they wanted to start it. And I don't see that happening. But
No.
if it did happen, we could play in Arlington and Houston now with limited people in the stands.
Yeah, we just talked about that too. Go ahead, Leland.
Well, the interesting thing that they say that they want to have the end date at the end of October. That's the natural end date for the season, anyways. And so, using the fear monitoring of the second coming of what we've been dealing with for the past few months, it should be more of the overall player's health. I mean, the fact is that you want to give especially your pitchers extra months of adequate months of rest between seasons, so they don't end up having arm injuries and whatnot. Allows teams to be conditioned for the spring. And historically, teams that have actually gone deep into the playoffs, they're usually run out of gas September, early October, anyways. So that's why it's been very, very rare in the past couple of decades to actually see a team repeat or come close to repeating. And
Well, I think one of the fun things about Major League Baseball is watching the standings, watching who's in first one day, who's competing. And I think if you don't get this thing off the ground until August, the average fan is going to lose interest by the time you start playing college football, if that happens. And I think we are going to play professional football. So I think the average fan, and you still got the NBA going on at that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an awful lot going to be going on in August and September. And if you can't get baseball started until August, which I think that's probably now the earliest, it's going to be tough.
How many years did it take for the NHL to recover after the season loss to the lockout? You're exactly right. And the NFL has the most normal plan of all. They have a regular season.
Right.
And a regular season in all the traditional fields. And the fact is the only thing they've changed was certain non-divisional games I guess they put in the beginning that if they had to shorten the season, they could just easily take those off and it wouldn't affect the divisional races.
And Rob, real quick.
I hate to throw a damper on this, but get ready, guys, because the press is already preparing people for a second total lockdown.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting a football season at all, to be honest
There's
with
no
you.
way we don't have a football season. No way.
And the XFL is actually in play. There's going to be a potential buy-in. I mean, it could be one of the biggest and most realistic suitors would be a combination of Disney, ESPN, and Fox Corporation with FS1, because those were the two broadcast partners of the XFL, where you had Disney, ESPN, also with ABC, and then Fox having on Fox broadcasting FS1. I think there was one FS2 game that was scheduled. And they were delivering very solid ratings, and before all this happened, they were actually delivering decent crowds in a lot of the venues. In fact, in St. Louis, they were going to open up the upper deck. That was showing how popular the league actually was. So, long story short, there, Vince declared bankruptcy because he wants out and he wants to get some of his money back, but he wants to sell it to a ownership group that's not going to turn into a laughingstock and have it actually continue. Now, also involved with this is the whole Oliver Luck lawsuit. Which
And Rob, you're in Houston, and you know the pertinent people around Oliver Luck. Can you give us a little insight on that, or give us your thoughts on that?
Well, the week that it was over, Dan Pastorini and I had dinner with June Jones and Bill Bradley and the whole staff, and they obviously wanted to keep playing because they were the odds-on favorite to win the entire league. And so it was heartbreaking for them. It was heartbreaking for Houston because they were to the point of basically almost to the point of selling out the stadium. Now, it wasn't NRG Stadium, but it was a fairly decent-sized college stadium. And so it was very disappointing to the city of Houston. It was exciting. They were winning. As far as the Oliver Luck thing goes, I mean, I have know Oliver not well, but I do know Oliver, and I thought he was the right fit for the job. Exactly what went wrong, I don't know, but if I had a chance to hire a commissioner, I would hire Oliver Luck.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that at all. Real quick, let's go to college because I know you're very dialed into college. Your thoughts about a college football season?
Well, I was a lot more optimistic until everybody, now the guys are getting back into school. A&M showed up with guys testing positive. Alabama's got several tested positive. Arkansas State had a lot. I saw today Auburn had some, and a whole lot of programs haven't even reported back yet. So we don't know what that's going to look like. I think it's one thing for a young, healthy player to get sick, but when you start looking around and seeing how many assistant coaches and head coaches are 65, 70 years old, it's not going to take but for one or two of those guys to get sick, and we're going to have a real problem on our hands. I would like to see them play a college season. I know a lot of people are looking, large programs are looking at going to a lottery system for their season ticket holders. Not if you're doing that at Texas or if you're doing that at A&M, you're probably going to make some people really disappointed that have been long-time ticket holders and tell them they're not going to that first game.
Right.
So I'm glad that's not something I'm in charge of, but that's my understanding. If they do have a college, then the governor's now said that we can have 50% at a football game now.
Is it 50%? I thought it was 25. Either or.
Yeah, I think they've raised it up to 50% now.
Right.
I know I know in the Big Ten there's two schools. I think it's Northwestern and Maryland says they're not going to play at all.
Northwestern Maryland said they're not playing at all?
And the University of Texas has said that everyone on campus has to wear a mask.
Wow. Okay.
And in the Big 12,
Hard to play a football game
which
like
is
that.
actually the Big 9 now. Who else did we lose? We lost somebody, didn't we? Or is it still 10?
It's still 10.
I think it's
still 10.
There-
At the moment, still 10.
There was a couple of teams who I can't recall off the top of my head. We're also talking about not having. So I think if we do have football, and I'm telling you, I think this next round is going to the propaganda and the media is going to push it so hard that I don't think we're going to have a season. And if we do, the Big Ten will probably field 6 or 7 of their teams. The Big 12, maybe 5 or 6 of their teams. You know, the schools that have crappy programs anyway, you know, that don't ever win anything, you know.
Go ahead, Rob.
I think they're just going to take a year off. I mean, what do you think? I mean, if your team's consistently winning 3 games a season, and just to kind of give you an insight, I'm in the age group. I'm 53, and I'm considered obese, but I'm pretty healthy. I don't believe this virus is anything more than a media frenzy, to be honest with you, because the media said nothing about it for the last 2 weeks. And we've had thousands of people.
Tens of thousands.
Yep.
Tens of thousands of people. But they're going to use that to say that now there's a spike, so we have to go to even a more extreme lockdown. And I think it's all driven by, you can listen to the show. But what would you think about that if, like, the crappier teams just said, screw it, we're not going to have a season, and we had, teams like the Big Ten, maybe you have 8 teams, Big 12, 5 teams.
Well, I can tell you what I can see that leading to, and I think eventually it's going to happen anyway. You're going to have a group of 32, or I don't know an exact number, but you're going to have a group of just the schools you named. Say if you have 6 in the Big 12 and 10 in the SEC and some in the Big Ten, you're going to eventually get to the point where they're going to form their own league anyway. And that's been what people have been talking about for a long time, and tell the NCAA, we don't need you anymore. We've got ABC, NBC, and we can do this on our own. And this could be the very thing that opens up the gate for that to happen. That's what's going to happen.
And it took as long as it did for finally the courts to rule that the players can get endorsement deals. I mean, it's the kind of thing where the schools are making millions off the players' back, and they can't even get an endorsement deal. I mean, I could see one argument of not being directly compensated, the pay to play, but say that you're some star, let's say some genius biologist, and you're a grad student, and you have all these pharmaceutical companies that are sponsoring your stuff, and they're promoting your work. That's fine, but a student athlete, they can't get a Wheaties or a shoe endorsement, or something that they're. that the pros are making millions on.
They
and that
can't have a job.
Yeah,
they can't even have a job
Exactly.
during the season. They can't have a job during the year.
And what that would allow them to do is not jump to the pros before they're ready to be at pro levels. You have so many players that jump to the pros too early. Vince Young's one of them. Johnny Football, definitely, he should have stayed.
And despite the fact the Cowboys didn't pick him, he still jumped early, right?
Yeah,
How
to
funny.
the Browns of all teams.
Oh,
Well,
my God.
let me ask you this. I've always been an advocate of a playoff in Division I football. What we have now is not a playoff.
No.
No.
It is the BCS talent. It is the BCS popularity contest expanded by 2 teams to appease. I don't know what, but it's not a playoff. And the way we're going now, only about 8 or 9 teams will ever have a shot at the national championship. And when there's over 100 teams in Division I, how would you feel about opening up the playoff to have a true playoff? All conference champions get in, plus a one-off and an independent, rounded out to 16 teams, and let's have a full month of December of football.
Well, I think it would work, and I think it would probably be the biggest. It would be bigger money maker than the Sweet 16 and the
Amen.
NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the semester's over in December. So the argument that it will go against the academics, no, that's not it at all. The semester's over in December.
And it only affects really 2 teams. It doesn't affect
that's right.
all 16 teams that get into the playoff, because after week 1, you can go home and study. Some of them.
Yeah, right.
You know, week 2, hey, you weren't good enough on the football team. You're going to need to get that. You're going to need to get that degree to be a good salesman for insurance. So they're going to go back to class.
And Rob, this is, as much as this coronavirus been a literal pain in the butt, I mean, every which way, it's open opportunities. Like Mike was just saying, potential for expanding the football playoffs. Like you said, potential for colleges forming new leagues. In the baseball side, if they ever do get a season in, the DH is going to be introduced in the National League. They're not going to be able to put the lid on that. I mean, this is the time for these things to come about, is it not?
Oh, I definitely think it is, and I think the football playoff, if they do have a shortened season this year, I think regardless of what happens this year, they've talked about stopping in Thanksgiving, that the season will be over in Thanksgiving. If that were to happen, I think next year would look totally different than it's looked in years past, because there would be schools that said, we can't do this anymore. Just like you're saying, schools won't play because there's no reason for them to go out there. They're losing money. Those teams would I don't say they'd be eliminated, but they would have to find their own league, and we would take these other schools, and you could have a 16-team playoff, because you'd probably only have 32 in your whole league anyway.
And I don't know if you know it. Well, obviously you do know it because you're more of an expert at this than us. But there's 47 bowl games, 47 opportunities for average coaches on average teams to claim they're a champion of something. And that's it. That's it.
Well,
And when you watch them,
nobody watches 44
and nobody
of them.
watches them. Well, no one goes to them. I mean, you got 2 teams from out of state. They go play in the Idaho Potato Bowl, and they have to pan the camera down to the field and not show the stands because there's maybe 3,000 people in the stands.
And you're talking to the right guy, because Rob has had a great association with the Texas Bowl. Rob?
Yeah. But what you're saying about that, and I am the chairman of the Gridiron Legends for the Texas Bowl here in Houston, and the Texas Bowl does well here because it's SEC versus Big 12, so it's a much more regionalized event. But you're exactly right. A lot of people, to watch the games, some of the games last year, it looked like they already knew it was coming, and nobody went to the game.
Hey, COVID's
They were
been coming.
prepared.
Hey, COVID's been on the way for the last 20 years. I've been watching bowl games because no one goes to the games. They go to the important ones, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, of course. They go to the old bowls, the Cotton Bowl's always done well. But then they come up with the Meineke Car Care Bowl. Who the hell is going to the Meineke Car Care Bowl to see 500 teams from the USA Conference USA and the Mountain West battle it out in the hills of wherever the hell they have it.
Yeah, they have-
nobody's watching that.
They have so few fans, they have to put all the fans on one side of the stadium.
It's
called
empty.
It's called the hard camera. Yeah, exactly. They make it look there's more people there. It's bad.
Yeah, they got the
Well,
100.
there was a bowl game, and I'm not going to tell you which one it was because I can't right now. But they went to the local school because nobody showed up for the team that was invited, and they went to one of the local universities in the town the bowl was being played with, and gave out shirts and told them to come sit in the stand, let them come free, and sat them down behind the team so it looked like there was people in the stands following the team, and that happened.
Hey, so you've got some information about that you want to get out, including the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, it's the Bob Lilly Golf Tournament, June 19th and 20th. It benefits the Texas the Texas Sports Hall of Fame in Waco, and be a great group there. It's the main supporter. That event is what keeps the Texas Sports Hall of Fame going. And if you've never been to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, boy, you need to go down there because it's one of the nicest Hall of Fames I've ever been to.
Easily.
And they do such a good job. And so it's June 19th and 20th, the Bob Lilly Celebrity Golf Tournament. Vince Young will be there. Be a lot of good celebrities that'll show up, and it's a good time. It's just a really good time.
Yeah, Jay does a great job with the Hall of Fame. Really does.
Yeah,
When's
Jay
the
Black
date
does a
for it
really
again?
good job, and they
And
Go ahead.
When's the date for the Hall of Fame again?
The golf
The
tournament.
golf tournament? Yeah.
it's Friday, June the 19th, and Saturday, June the 20th.
So it's upcoming.
And,
And are they going to allow crowds at the tournament?
Yeah, they are, and also they have an event the night before at the Hall of Fame. It's Friday, the night before the actual event, or after the Friday event and between the Saturday, and it's at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. And they were concerned they may not be able to have that this year, but they will be able to have it this year with the limited amount of people inside, which is a really good thing.
Good deal. Didn't you have another one that you wanted to throw out there?
Right now, we've got the Ole Miss Baylor game coming up. Hopefully coming up Labor Day weekend. It will be the only game played on that Sunday on September the 6th. It'll be two new coaches, and I can't tell you how many people will be in the stands. You know, that we were talking about allowing people into the stadiums. I guess we'll start keeping NRG open finally because if they open it, I guess it's an outdoor venue instead of a closed venue.
Right.
Yeah, they just opened the roof.
Yep, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, they could say that to all the outdoor baseball stadiums as well as the retractable roof stadiums.
Yep. And hey, Rob, we've been talking about high school, talking about opportunities for changing things that have been long-standing. If we do have a high school football season, we'll focus on that for a second. There's possibility,
Well,
and they're talking about
if-
that we have video broadcasts of live Friday night games and get rid of that freaking archaic rule by UIL to not televise live Friday night football.
Yeah, because
Yeah, and you guys were talking about once it's happened, it's hard to turn back, just like the designated hitter. Hopefully, if they allow live streaming, live games on Friday nights, they'll never be able to get that toothpaste back in the tube either, and we can continue to do that because people would love that. I think what people don't understand is there's people that are out of town, like here in Kingwood. There's people that may be in another country and want to see their kids play, and they could do it if they were in another country. But unfortunately now they can't do that. So I think it'd be a great thing if they would allow live streaming.
Wasn't that one of the issues that this rule is still in place is because of the existence of the Longhorn Network and UIL is run by the University of Texas?
no, the reason it exists is football coaches out there don't want other football coaches to be able to record the game and get videotape of what they're doing and give them advantage for the next game.
But they get
a very-
videotape anyway.
but they get tape anyway.
They
but
get tape
a very
anyway.
good
Yeah,
coach,
they
a
exchange
very good
tape.
coach told me this once, and he said, "Mike, if your football team isn't good enough to execute the plays and the game plan, then it doesn't matter what the other team does. They could show up totally blind and you're still going to lose. Or they could show up and have your complete playbook. But every play on offense is designed to be a touchdown, and every play on defense is designed to be a quarterback sack. So execute the game plan, and it doesn't matter if the other team knows what you're doing or not.
And Big D wasn't part of this not televising Friday night, was to keep that from fans not going to the game and sitting at home and watching instead of going to the game, which is
that's the argument that they like to use. It affects attendance.
Come on,
But
really?
I promise you, when Austin Westlake plays Lake Travis,
right.
they're going to a football game.
Exactly.
They'll all be there.
I have been the stadium announcer here at Hutto, Texas. This will be my 20th year, 19th year. Every single Friday night from the time we were 3A, and next year we're going to be 6A. There's 8,000 to 10,000 people every Friday night, even if we suck. So that's not that argument holds no weight.
And it hasn't for a long time.
Not in Texas.
it's
Now
a
maybe in
social
Michigan,
event.
but not in Texas.
It's a social event. It gives people to get out of the house and have a good time. There's nothing like seeing sports live. That's why they keep building all these venues. That's why even though every major sport is broadcast on television, why is it they fill up stadiums?
That's why we have $50 million high school football stadiums in Texas, right, Big Daddy?
Well, it is, and a perfect example of that is this year North Shore is scheduled to play De La Salle out of Sacramento, and that's on ESPN. Well, I doubt very seriously that many people are going to travel in from California, so that has nothing to do with attendance. It has everything to do with somebody making a lot of money off that broadcast when those two high school teams play.
Well, both those schools are going to benefit off that broadcast. And, I'm seeing a lot of that, too, here just being in Texas. But I'm seeing a lot of the bigger school programs all around the nation have to go out of the state to find people to play. And I know that's a problem we're having here in Hutto, is we can't find anybody non-conference to play because nobody wants to play us.
Liberty Hill has the same issue. They continue to play well in the playoffs, and nobody wants to play that slot T offense during non-district because
I don't think they
don't
want to
have to
play
prepare
us
for
next year because we figured that thing out.
Well, yeah. Tell you what, that was one of the most exciting games. That 51-50.
Hey, that was
incredible a couple years back.
That was 4 overtimes.
Yep, that was fun.
And on their 2-point conversion, they fell 2 inches short.
Yep, that was fun. Hey, Rob, what's the talk over there in Houston about high school sports overall?
Well, I don't think anybody knows. Everybody's trying to work out and trying to do the best you can. At least they get to have the kids back. But just like we were talking a while ago, whether this COVID is real, not real, or whatever you feel about it, somebody has got to make that decision. And I don't think anybody wants to put themselves out there just in case. Now, I personally would love to see Texas high school football back. It's outside. The heat out here, supposedly that's the case, too, that it's not transmitted as easily in the UVs and the warmer weather. So maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But I think right now nobody knows. It's still up in the air just exactly what they are going to do about high school football. Everybody's planning to play that 0 week. Everybody wants to play, but I don't think anybody can tell you, let's check out the unis and go at it.
Well, Rob, we're going to have you on again towards the end of the month and get updates on that because we'll have updates from the governor and probably UIL by the end of the month. But thanks for the time, man, tonight. And again, give you another chance to talk for Jay Black and promote the golf tournament.
Yep. It's June 19th and 20th in Waco. And give Jay a call at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. And you can Google that, and there's connects to the golf tournament as well, the Bob Lilly Golf Tournament.
All right, Big D. Big Daddy, Rob Lynch, thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right, bye. So, yeah, and Mike, you know this as well. We're all kind of watching UIL. Next week, by the way, we'll have Sam Tipton executive director of Texas Girls Coach Association, on the show again. He was on our inaugural show back 4 weeks ago, and he'll have an update as well on everything. But, again, it's kind of dependent on the governor and what he says. That pretty much sets the tone for everybody else and what they do.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. I just kind of read the propaganda. It's going to be tragic if they do feed into this nonsense and continue this ridiculous lockdown of healthy people to protect less than 1% of the total population. And I know that sounds heartless, but that's what it is. And we never, ever have ever done this for anything else but this. We don't do it for pneumonia annually, which kills
20,000 more people.
20,000 more
The
people
flu.
have died. The flu. And everybody's got to remember that 118,000 is reported deaths, not confirmed deaths. So
And
I don't know.
Anyone.
I think this country, though, is kind of the point. Baseball, okay. NBA, football. Hey, what are you talking about, Willis?
Exactly.
That's not going to happen. You're not going to take our
Exactly. You're
So
not going to take
we
football
hope
away.
we have a rise up.
Yeah.
And just look
Yeah,
at
you're not
government.
gonna take
It's
football
kinda-
away.
Well, it's kind of like the mayor Adler came out a week and a half
Austin
ago
mayor.
and said, "I'm extending the lockdown until June 15th," and everybody's like. I'm going out drinking. Screw you, buddy. And I've been busy, so.
Yep. So there you go. Rob Lynch. We got Julieta calling in about 3 minutes. This is a volleyball player, a very talented volleyball player. She's on everybody's top 20 list as far as freshman volleyball players. She had a freshman year last year. She's very tall. She can hit very hard. She plays for the Woodlands volleyball team, which is really every year they're mentioned in the top 20, not just in 6A, but in the entire state. And this is a young lady that, if you can believe it, she's 18, had a heart attack while she was working out. I mean, who thinks about heart attacks with an 18-year-old? Cardiac arrest. She's recovered, fortunately. The cardiac arrest was May 3rd. Fortunately, her sister was there to immediately administer CPR. She was in a coma for a while, but now she's recovered. She's slowly building back up. She may or may not see volleyball season for the high school, assuming everything goes off. But she's making herself an advocate to make other high school and college players aware of what can happen. She's going to come out. She's going to be calling here in just a minute. So look forward to talking to her. In the meantime, Mike, throw that graphic up, the baseball MLB graphic, real quick. Yeah. So the point is this, Leland. What happens this year affects the CBA, collective bargaining agreement. Look at the far right of the graphic. The CBA next year.
Well, what's happening is that one of the owner proposals was to have graduated prorating for the players. The higher paid players were going to have a bigger percentage of their paycheck docked or prorated away. And a lot of these players, and of course a lot of their managers, not their managers, they're managers.
Managers.
They're managers. That negotiated these contracts largely backloaded, meaning that they are paid more towards the end of their contract. If they're coming up on the backloading portion of their contract, they're kind of being screwed. That's just putting it the lightest, most PG way of saying it. I think Scott Boras is. What language can I use that would be PG?
Careful. Careful.
Not a fan of this, to say the least.
My show's at 9.
Yeah. Yeah, the lid comes off of the language at 9 o'clock, but not now.
So we cannot have Scott Boras probably on the show for the next 3 months.
No, probably not.
But we can have it on the air with Mike Allen.
Of course, actually. Get Boris on with Mike. That'd be
does he
as long as I can sit in.
And the
Does he have a potty mouth?
the amount of millions of dollars that he is probably
Billions.
losing, billions of dollars.
Billions.
But hey, anyone could now afford Garrett Cole. That being said, it actually shows how much money these teams are actually generating from the in-stadium fans, not just the television rights deals. Because a lot of people think that okay, they're getting 80% of their money from the television rights deals. No, that's not the case. Otherwise, why would you be building these stadiums with luxury boxes? And I'm hoping that doesn't become a point of contention, but we all know it is.
Of course,
because the boxes. Yes, you can socially distance in a box, but a box, not the fair weather fan can afford to go to a game, especially.
Well, most of those boxes are already they're already bought, so they're not. It's hard to get a box as a ticket holder trying to buy a box.
Exactly, they have a whole season seat license.
The owner of the box has to put in the games that he's not going to go to, and then has to agree to allow that box to be used by the stadium to sell for people who want to pay to go to the box. But if I'm buying that much for a box...
Hello?
Hang on, Julieta. Mike is making his point. He's gotten long-winded on us. He knows you're there.
If I have a box and I bought it, I'm going every single game. So
okay. Julieta, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, Julieta Valdez, our volleyball player from the Woodlands. How are you doing? And for the folks who, I can't imagine there's somebody not familiar with what happened to you back on May 3rd. Kind of give us a quick summary of what happened and just the horrible happening that happened to you.
Well, I was doing push-ups. I was working out with my sister pretty late at night, and I went into sudden cardiac arrest. It led to having multiple heart surgeries and now an ICD device. And I was in a coma for about a week or so. And in the hospital for about 3 weeks, but now that I'm out, I'm doing a lot better, and I'm just working on the recovery process.
Joined by Julieta Valdez. Julieta, how many honors did you have last year? I mean, goodness, for some of the folks here who don't know high school volleyball in Texas, you were truly one of the freshmen to watch. There's no question. Your talent is outstanding. Your all-around game is amazing. You had a phenomenal freshman season last year.
Thank you so much.
So what you and I talked about the other day when we interviewed, what you've done is you've taken this incident now, and now you're becoming an advocate to talk to high school players, other volleyball players, other kids your age, and so forth about what can happen. Give us an idea of what you're talking to folks about.
Well, first and foremost, we want to teach a lot of people about CPR and the importance of it, since that is what essentially helped me to get to where I am today safely without barely any, I guess, interruptions.
And that was your sister, right?
Like to teach, yes.
Yeah, Patricia.
So I would like to bring a little, I guess, not a lot of people know CPR, so I think that would be one of my main points to reach. And I also want to make aware, like, what it looks whenever people go into sudden cardiac arrest, since there's so many cases where it looks like people are breathing, but it's not always like that. So I just want to bring a lot of awareness to it and just kind of help teach people basic CPR and how to use a defibrillator in case something were to happen to someone.
Now, when you talk about what you went through, what questions do you get from folks that you're trying to educate? What do they ask you?
A lot of people ask me how it felt. I can't really describe that since I wasn't very conscious. But a lot of people have asked me about my recovery process mainly, trying to get more information on that. But mainly, like I said, the main questions that I get is about the CPR process that was done to bring me back to life and how they used the defibrillator on me and the machines that were used. But yeah.
Did they determine whatever caused the heart attack in the first place?
So I've had arrhythmia my whole life, which is something that I got from my mom. So my mom has this too. But it's always been something that we thought was very minor. I always get yearly checkups, and they've always told me that I was cleared for sports and that I was a very healthy kid. And I would get arrhythmias every now and then, but it was nothing that I ever worried about. But apparently this arrhythmia was a little different, and it was what caused the sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow. Are you taking medication? What is your workout or recovery, I guess, therapy? Where are you at right now as far as recovery and building up again?
So as of right now, I can't really lift up or do a lot of things with my arms because of the scars and the IC device pocket healing in. So as far as upper body strength goes, it's not very well right now. I am looking forward to being able to move fully in about a month or so. But I will be on pills for the rest of my life, beta blockers, which will also help prevent this from happening. And I'm currently on a shot called Lovenox, which I take twice a day.
And talk about what was inserted inside of you.
What did you say, sorry?
I said, talk about what was surgically placed inside of you to make sure this doesn't happen again.
So I have an ICD device. It is a little device, probably 2 inches tall and centimeters wide. So it's very, very small, very technologically advanced. I have it placed right above my heart on my left side, and it is basically a device that is screwed in so that it tracks my heartbeat and it paces it if it gets too slow. So sometimes if I'm laying down for too long, I'll feel the click of it telling my heart to kind of be a little faster. But essentially what I'll do is that if I ever were to go through this incident again and I don't have anybody to help me, it will manually shock me, kind of what a defibrillator would do.
Right.
And it is very effective. It's, I think, about 99.8% effective with the first shock. So it is basically kind of life support. So just in case this were to happen again, I'm almost assured that I have something here to help shock my heart back again and be fine.
Do you have to worry about playing in a certain way or wearing a chest protector so that the device doesn't get any damage?
No, sir. I do have to watch out for any strong magnets and also trying not to get hit in that area very hard. So, for example, if I were to be a football player, that would be a main concern. But because of volleyball is not as much of a contact sport, getting hit by a ball won't do any damage to it.
Or doing a dive
so
to try to...
everything is good.
Or doing a dive to the ground to try to spike a ball up over the net. You don't have to worry about that or anything like that.
No, sir. It's mainly just like baseball and football, sports that have really rough contact. I would have to worry about scenarios if I were playing those sports, but diving and getting maybe a rough hit with the ball or something like that is not something to worry about in my case.
Right. Julia, how tall are you?
I'm about 6'1".
Okay, 6'1". Now, we talked about the possibility of maybe you playing back row to start and being a libero. How about a 6'1" libero?
I would love that.
Well, you definitely have the defensive talent for that. Julieta Valdez of the Woodlands.
I have a question, and I'm sorry to hear that your magnet fishing career is not going to happen. One of the things I don't know if anybody's asked you, and you don't have to answer if you're tired of answering, but when you were in a coma, were you aware that you were in a coma, and what was that experience like?
Sadly, I would like to say that I saw the light or something magical like that, but I don't remember most of that since I was so medically induced. I do remember kind of what it felt like to gain some consciousness. So I do remember a glimpse of seeing my mom and seeing my room a little bit. But I don't quite remember what it was like to be in the coma or whenever I didn't have a pulse. So Yeah.
So no dreams or visions or cool stuff.
Like she
No,
said, no
definitely
light.
not.
You know, we
I mean,
didn't
I'm-
see the
yeah.
beckoning light. You know, that type
I'm not
deal.
trying to, go get in a coma
No,
to see it.
no,
I just wondered if there was something happening.
Sure.
back there. So okay, thank you.
I'm
for
sure
answering
she's been
my
asked.
question. I am trying to be a little bit silly here, but I was kind of interested in that.
Now, the question I have: have you been asked, especially by older people, are they surprised that somebody your young age went through this?
Yes, I don't think anybody expected any of this, especially because all my family lives such a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
And the arrhythmia that I had mentioned before was something that we never thought could cause sudden cardiac arrest. But I later went on to find out how many people in different sports and how common this is for student athletes. So I was shocked at first, like, how could this happen to me? But then I saw and did my research, and it's actually a lot more common than what I thought. So
How common
I'm
is
still
it?
in shock, but
How common is it among student athletes?
I couldn't give you a specific number, but I did read quite a lot of articles and have talked to some people across the country that have gone through this. And it is a lot more common than what I would like it to be. It's actually quite sad, but that's why I want to bring more awareness to it, because it is something that occurs so much across the country, and it's not something that is talked about. I know more of it now because I went through it,
Right.
but I want more people to know about it just to be prepared if anything were to happen.
So the question is, for those of us who know high school volleyball and want to see your immense talents back on the court, what's the timeline for you possibly playing again?
Well, as of right now, the only restriction that is holding me back is how the ICD pocket is healing. So they said the whole thing about me moving my torso would be about 1 to 2 months, and I'm about a couple weeks into that timeline, so probably about a month now for me to get moving fully again. I think it's just playing it by how I feel. I'm not quite sure yet how everything is going to play out because my body did take quite a hit from all this.
Right.
But hopefully I'll be able to maybe come back sometime by districts or maybe in the playoffs. But I would like to say that I'll participate in at least a little bit of high school volleyball this year.
Yeah, I'm sure Coach Terry Wade and the program over there would love to have you back, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Julieta, I know one of the things that we talked about was how much people reached out, how much the community, the Houston Juniors. I want to give you a minute or two to thank anybody and everybody that you want to throw out there because, again, the support for you, your family was phenomenal. And I know 2 minutes won't do justice, but go ahead and take it and point out some amazing people and some amazing groups that have helped you through this.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all my family because they've definitely, I've put them through it, to say the least. So I want to thank Coach Wade and the whole women's volleyball program. They have been absolutely amazing. They gave me the most heartfelt, homecoming on my way back from the hospital, and they have just helped me so much. I want to thank all Houston Juniors, Miss Stephanie Rhodes, Coach Kara, my coach, Coach Tara. They have been absolutely amazing. They started my GoFundMe, and they have helped put my name out there to help raise some awareness and also ease some financial pain that we were feeling at the time. And I want to thank my extended family as well. They've been amazing and helped support through all this, as well as my friends. So, yeah.
Awesome. Guys, anything else before we let her go? All right. Julieta Valdez, thanks so much for the time. We will visit again next month because we want an update on how you've been able to reach out to folks and some of the feedback that you've gotten. Thanks for the time tonight, Julieta. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, sweetie. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. It's hard to explain what an impact this player is. She's 6'1". She can leap. The net's 10 feet up over. Okay, hit the ball very hard.
So she can leap over 4 feet.
Yeah, and she can play the back row, which in volleyball it's all about defense. It's all about digging balls and stuff. She can play that as good as a designated libero. This girl is multifaceted,
Hopefully-
multi-talented.
Hopefully, she gets her medication and everything's set so she can continue on with her career. Because, I'm sure there's a college out there somewhere that'll
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
snag her up.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so let's go back real quick and let's talk college sports. Mike, you kind of hit on it a little bit about teams. Number one, teams that may not have the better programs may not play football at all this year. And number two, kind of what we talked about with Rob Lynch, Big Daddy, about the fact, okay, let's say Big Ten does have 5 to 8 teams that play this year. What are we looking at? Are we looking at basically a revamp of leagues and the bowl game structure, and the playoff structure? I thought that was really interesting. I kept it in my mind that let's hit on that a little bit before we sign off.
Well, I always thought that the conferences were kind of silly. Way back even when I was a kid, I couldn't understand them, especially at the Division I level, because they are not all equal. And I don't think they're not equal because of the talent necessarily or the access to talent. They're not equal because of the money. And when you have a Big 10, Big 12, SEC, especially right now, SEC is real hot. When you have that kind of money being pumped into the program, it's going to be put on TV. It's going to be put to the forefront. Notre Dame's a great example with their TV contact. But no one ever's going to watch Utah or San Jose State, who could have great football teams.
Right.
But since they don't meet like an ESPN journalist said it best, they don't pass the taste test. Well, the taste test is how much money can I make off them on TV? That's
Right.
the taste test, not who's the better team. And it bugs the hell out of me when we have these playoff or BCS bowl or whatever, when people say strength of schedule. Well, they're there because of strength of schedule. And a team like Texas is going to have to run the table, be perfect, just to even have a shot to get into the Final
absolutely.
Four. Where Alabama, with its patty cake schedule, before non-conference schedule, can stumble in there off of 2 losses, but they're the better team because because they make money.
Yeah, a good example is Boise. For a couple seasons in a row, they were perfect.
Yeah, Boise State.
Boise State,
had one
yep.
of the greatest college bowl games ever, the Fiesta Bowl in 2009, when they went into 3 overtimes and beat then Oklahoma, who was bumped out of the BCS with an undefeated record by, I think, a 1-loss team that ended up going. And it's just a mess. And I think if we do away with the conferences, if we just take the same 9 teams everybody wants to see and put them in a league, East and West, and then have a true playoff at the end of it, then we'll really know who the best team is, and let the other teams form like a Division D1 B squad or whatever they want to name.
Texas had even a more screwball situation in 2008 where they lost to Texas Tech. They were still ranked where they would have gotten into the playoffs. Then they had one more game which they won, but they dropped rank and they didn't make it into the Big 12 championship.
Well,
so that means they didn't get into the BCS championship. I mean, that's just how ridiculous the system was in this playoff. I mean, it just
Mike's been saying for years, and I totally agree. This is not playoffs. This is patty cake. Let's
who's got the best TV ratings?
Yeah, basically. Yep. And Oklahoma doesn't do the Big 12 any justice because when they get in the playoff, they get their butt handed to them.
Their nickname is Choklahoma.
Every year.
Yeah, 2000
That's
was an
ridiculous.
anomaly that they actually won the national
Yep.
championship, but every year since then they would lose.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it looks like the NCAA is looking at a 6-week season, which means they're going to cut out the non-conference games
Okay.
and do it like that.
So 3-3.
So all teams are playing.
Okay.
And I can't find the article that I read about the teams like Vanderbilt,
Northwestern.
Maryland. You know,
Right.
But
why? Why are you going to show up, man?
But see, we already permanently canceled this year's basketball tournament. There is no baseball season. What other sports that NCAA sports that aren't?
Well, just
playing?
remember, it'll all end with the election.
Oh, yeah. You know it will.
And then
Yeah.
next year it'll be like nothing happened, no matter who wins,
Yep.
whether it's Trump or Biden or Jorgensen. Jorgensen 2020.
Since on that note, it's a perfect way to segue into what's coming up at 9 o'clock because we're going to sign off early just to make sure you got enough time to get your show and the settings set up. What do we got coming up at 9 o'clock on the Mike Allen Show? And it's on the air with Mike Allen on YouTube.
Well, I'm not going to speak for the entire cast, but I'm throwing my lot in with Joe Jorgensen and Ace Cohen for president out of the Libertarian Party. And I'm sure that my good friend over here,
Leland.
who'll be reporting for he's all on board the Trump train, and I will have some pretty good conversations about that leading up to the election. We do not have anybody, and I'm trying to find your bookend. I'm trying to find a friend of mine who's a liberal to come in here and be part of the cast so that we have our token Republican, the token Democrat, and then the rest of us that are
The rest of them.
not anything really, but
Right.
But yeah, that's what's coming up. And Adam Raposa is probably going to call in and talk about the riots and the legal system. And of course, I'm going to talk about the riots too, and just kind of touch on my observations being down there at the riots,
Right.
and how I am leaning towards Black Lives Matter. I think they got a point, and it took a while for me to see it. But I don't think that they're responsible for the riots and the looting. I think that's a crowd mentality that gets. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yep. And even Roger Goodell agrees with that. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks to Big Daddy Rob Lynch, our sports insider, and Julieta Valdez. We'll visit with both of them coming up in the next 4 weeks or so and get updates from them. Also, next week, we have confirmed Sam Tipton, Executive Director of Texas Girls Coaches Association here in Texas. He'll give us an update on high school athletics as well. So huge, Leland, huge applause for Mr. Mike for putting the show together, figuring this stuff out so we could get on the air. And Patrick Davis, man. Okay, yeah, we're just going to, there you go. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back next week, 7:30 start time. Thanks to Mike, thanks to Leland, and we'll see you next week here in the On Deck Circle.